This is the Tech Vibe Radio One Mic Stand. This is Jonathan Kirsting with the Pittsburgh Technology Council and Tech Vibe Radio. And it's been on our minds a ton, all about the new workspaces, the new workplaces, everything, not just your offices, but where you live, hotels, public spaces. It's all about the cleanliness of the spaces and how they're going to be designed, how they're going to be retrofitted due to all of this COVID pandemic stuff that has really made us rethink everything. And we got a really great guy with us here today. We have Eric Booth from Desmone. And these guys are literally on the absolute bleeding edge of all of this because they themselves have just qualified for this really, really cool designation. It's the Well Gold certification. This is something I'd never heard of. And the timing of you guys getting this couldn't have been better because I think it's something that we all need to be thinking about. And so Eric Booth from Desmone, thanks for hanging out with us today. Pleasure to have you on the One Mic Stand.
Thanks, Jonathan. Happy to be here.
Very cool. And my dogs are happy you're here too because they are barking in the background. So we'll just have to pretend that they're not barking for some reason. But anyhow, just the joys of working from home. I do miss my in-office studio at this point. That's for sure.
Part of the new experience, I think.
Absolutely. So first off, give us the quick background on Desmone and what Desmone's all about.
Sure. So we're an architecture and interior design firm, full service. We have offices in Pittsburgh, Morgantown, West Virginia, and Salisbury, Maryland. We do a lot of different project types, so everything from offices and hotels and apartment buildings, old, new. We even do single family residential buildings. And so we just achieved, like you said, the first Well Gold certified building in the city of Pittsburgh. And it's for our own building in our own edition. So we at Doughboy Square. So if you go through Lawrenceville and you see the Doughboy statue, the soldier statue, there's an old bank building right behind it.
Yep.
That's us. So that building was
cool
built,
space too, man. I think you got one of the best
cool
buildings down there, man. That's like iconic, man. It definitely is.
Exactly. So it was a cool building, but we outgrew it. And so we thought about looking at other space. And we thought, okay, let's just add on to it. And so the addition that we did is what we actually sought and achieved WELL certification for.
Very cool. And like I said, this is something you said started like back in 2017. So this is not just something where it's like, yeah, I think I'll do this. We'll fill some paperwork out and you get some sort of a stamp. This is like the real deal in ensuring that you have a healthy workplace.
Exactly.
And I think as we move forward, as I was mentioning in our little intro, like this is going to be, I think, par for the course moving forward. It seems like I think everyone's going to be demanding that their workplaces meet this certification. So give us some details on what this certification means.
Sure. So you may have heard of LEED. Okay, so LEED is basically a rating system that looks at how buildings impact the environment.
Okay.
It's been around for quite a while. So WELL is about how buildings impact people. It's also a rating system. And so what it does is it breaks it down in different categories and looks at different things like air and water and comfort and how all those things, all those topics relate to the human being.
Right.
And so it's a rating system. And so there's different levels. And it's something that unlike some programs where you like sort of like get it, you do something and you claim you did something and you get a certificate and it's done. The WELL program certification actually requires physical testing of the building. So we had to think about it, design it, it had to be built. We had to record all those things. And then third-party assessors came out to our building, actually physically tested it to make sure that the things we said were going to happen actually happened. And we have to do this every 3 years. So there's accountability aspect to it.
Wow. So you can't ever breathe. I mean, you can breathe easy, but you can't breathe easy.
Well, if we did it right, we're breathing easier to begin with, right?
Exactly. But it's always like, they're coming back in 3 years.
But you know what? Like it's holding us accountable. And I think we were talking before, it's like you can have a great building, but like if you don't use it properly, if you forget to change air filters or something like that, it's just not going to function properly. And so one of the reasons we like the WELL program is because it holds us accountable. I mean, literally, so we've been living this now for since last year and we finished up. Okay. And for example, when our cleaning people come in, they have a whole list of things. There has to be a checklist on the entire building. It's a very thing. So it's become very relevant nowadays.
Absolutely. Wow. I mean, so honestly, I guess this actually creates like a whole new culture at work to a certain degree, a culture of cleanliness and well-being, because if you got to maintain this, I mean, every day you're thinking about it. You're making note that like filters have to be changed and that surfaces have been cleaned and all that type of thing, right?
Yes. I mean, and the word you use, culture, is perfect. The reason we decided to go after this to begin with is because we felt it matched with our culture as a company and as a business owner, right? So we believe that people are first. And we believe as designers that buildings should be designed for people, basic kind of concept, right?
Sounds good to me.
And so, and so what we loved about the program is that it's not just about the building itself. It's also about policies. It's about how we use the building once we have it. And it goes beyond just policies that have to do with the building, but it includes things like our healthcare. It includes all the things that we do that can make a person healthier. So even though we're still working remotely, the fact that we have policies in place to support people, our staff, for example, eating healthier or exercising, or even just the insurance we have for them, all those things are still in place because it's about an entire work culture.
Yeah, no, it's so cool. And I just feel like, as companies are competing for talent, and they know how important this is to everybody, this is something that the companies are going to be adopting, because it's going to be a must-have almost, because people are going to be looking for this. And now that we've all been very traumatized by the whole COVID thing, it's just like it's just become so front of mind now that we're all going to be thinking about, well, what's going on in my workplace right now. And so having this setup, I think, eases a lot of minds and creates that whole mindset of keeping people healthier and keeping people, from being, more cognizant of who's around them and all that type of stuff, excuse me. So very cool.
Yeah, I mean, we're kind of in a triage state right now in terms of COVID. It's all about stopping the pathogens, and it makes complete sense. Right. But the bigger picture here is about wellness, and the truth is that if we as human beings are better and we're healthier, we actually have natural, more resistant and more, to pathogens.
Right. Yep.
If we're eating better, if we're getting better sleep, we are naturally more resistant to these types of things. And it's just basically it's about looking at the entire thing holistically, thinking about wellness.
So tell me about how this is going to be moving forward now. I mean, obviously you have clients that are approaching you, that will be approaching you. They're like, we're building a new building, or we're retrofitting our old space. They're going to be thinking about all these requirements and everything like that. What's going to be changing moving ahead? I know there's going to be a lot to talk about with surfaces, mechanical and HVAC. I mean, airflow has to be a top priority at this point. What are some of the key things that people are going to be thinking about?
There are some simple things, and they might not necessarily be simple, but new things are basic, like cleaning protocol. Cleaning protocol is take center stage because of its importance. And now, we sort of tried to kind of make this point, to clients 4 months ago. Now it's becoming very apparent how important it is. Okay, so there's that.
Sold.
Exactly. Air quality, ventilation, and spaces. One thing that's coming out, and a lot of this knowledge on buildings and the impact of buildings on people is very evolving things. And so there's studies now that basically show how it's safer generally to be outside in terms of transmission because of the ventilation than it is inside generally. So the more we can make the inside of our buildings have a similar kind of or closer ventilation or being well ventilated, also helps to extract and disperse airborne pathogens, which obviously,
because we all know, for those of us who are stuck in offices where the windows don't open, I mean, you're just recirculating air. And last year I took a trip to Copenhagen and we toured a lot of sustainable buildings, and a lot of stuff they're building there. They have for them, office buildings, when they go over 10 stories, it's like a big deal there. It's like there's like special permits for something over like 100 feet tall. But for the bigger buildings that they're putting together, I mean, the windows open. Yes. And best of all, people have like decks and porches in these offices to get people outside even when they're inside and keep the air flowing in and out. And I'm thinking, man, they're like ahead of the curve there. Like, are we going to see more of that in the States, do you think, where people are going to demand airflow, for crying out loud?
Absolutely. But you think about what that is, right? Opening the window, what is that doing? It's basically connecting us back to nature. Right. And so a lot of these things, even though they have to do with the interior environment, a lot of them are around the idea of mimicking more the kind of what nature allows us and our connection to it as human beings. We have this really deep connection to it. So air and light, the other very important one is light. And think about a dark room with no window versus a room with a window. Right. Generally, the room with the window is going to be a more pleasant space, depending on what you're using it for.
Unless it's looking out something really weird.
Exactly.
Or it's looking out to a brick wall or something like that. That even that gives you something better to look at.
Yeah, even if you got 3 foot space and there's some light coming down there, it feels a little bit better, right?
You better believe it. Absolutely, absolutely. So, what are your thoughts on materials, new materials? I'm sure there's lots of cool antimicrobial type stuff, or just natural surfaces that are better at fighting germs and keeping things clean. What's up with that?
Yeah, there's that, but it's probably more about actually being cleanable.
Okay.
So there's things, as part of the well program, we have to have surfaces that, for example, are easily clean and don't actually trap dirt, for example. Right. Because trapping things ends up, leading to something. So a lot of it is about that, but also just choosing things that can be, that resist a spread or easily clean. That's kind of where it's at.
Very cool. And so all of this kind of like leads up to really creating a better emotional experience when you're at work.
Yeah.
And it's like, I hate to get all emo on people, but it's such an important thing because we spend so much of our time at work. And I think even though we're going to be working more virtually, in the future, because we've all learned, yes, like we're doing right now on Zoom, we can get some stuff done. But I think before we hit the record button on this, we were kind of talking about the fact that, will be coming back to work. There will still be people in offices. And when they do get there, it's like we spend a lot of time there, and that's got to be some quality time. And you got to be in a good emotional state. And all this kind of flows into it: clean air, light, clean surfaces, and that all flows into this whole well standard that you guys have. So tell us how this impacts emotions and can really be uplifting for your people.
Absolutely. I mean, think about, we're all, we're human beings. We like to think that we're driven by data, but we normally use data to support the things that we decide emotionally.
Right.
So all these things factor into it, right? So, if you feel better, mind, body, spirit, you're generally going to be more productive. And so if we have spaces and we know from a design perspective what things create a healthier kind of feeling, a lot of natural light, for example, ventilation, but even things that actually sort of touch to deeper emotional types of things or spiritual things, like we like to have our mind engaged. We think about your own space, and you have a desk and you put a photo of like your family there or something that's, your dog or whatever. I mean, that's an emotional attachment. That's something that brings you joy, but also helps with your overall kind of well-being, right? And those types of things can be extracted on a larger scale. If you think about that and you're deliberate about it, you can actually then help to influence people's moods, which obviously is going to affect the way that they can produce.
Absolutely. No, see, that's just so important. And that's why I feel like moving forward, Desmone is just so well set because this is what people are going to be requiring and wanting. And I know before, like people would talk about, but there's always, it seems somewhat cost prohibitive because, it's going to cost a little bit more. And that's just kind of touchy feely. But now people are kind of realizing that there's some real concrete like evidence behind this and it's actually effective. So I feel like we're going to have better spaces, and it's going to be places like Desmone that are going to be able to put that together and actually make those spaces happen. Because these are all disparate pieces that we're all talking about, but it takes a place like Desmone to tie them all together. And my dogs agree.
He agrees. So yeah, and it's not just office buildings, it's every building. So every single building we're going to use has to think about these things. So obvious ones that come up are things like restaurants. So right now, I don't know about you, but I am just clamoring to get back into a restaurant.
Can't even imagine
it. Yeah. And we need to think about them and design them so that they can be healthier, literally healthier, and also give a sense of well-being when we're in there, because we want to feel safe. We're not going to go do it unless we actually feel safe in that. And it's not purely just about the physical components. It's also about those emotional things and the cues that we do that help create that overall environment. But there's something that's drawn to that, right?
Absolutely. I mean, we've covered so much today. I always feel like I'm missing something at the end of these things. Is there something that we haven't gotten out that like our listeners, our viewers need to know about?
Yeah, I think, you said about the cost and the expense and so forth. And certainly it's better to look at it kind of like a good, better, best. When you're going to look at the top of the line, obviously there's going to be a lot of additional expense in those things, really highly complex air filtration systems and so forth. But even at the very basic, there are things that people can do to basically increase the wellness of something that may not cost very much at all. It's just basically about thinking very strategically and thoughtfully about the spaces and the buildings we have, and then how they can just be improved by using, sometimes they're just like basic kind of design techniques. So I think it's something that everyone should be thinking about and start thinking about what wellness means to the individual. Because I am a person who believes that if people are better and they're healthier, then we as a people, we have better cities, we have better companies, we have better countries, we have a better world if we're all able to basically function from a place of wellness as opposed to, greater challenges, whether it be physical or mental.
I could not agree with you more. That's why I'm so glad we had this conversation today, Eric. Seriously. And what's cool is it's like you're here in Pittsburgh, you and your team leading the way in this. That's making Pittsburgh proud. Simple as that. You gotta love it, man. Gotta love it. Thanks so much for taking the time to talk to us today.
Sure.
Great information.
All right. Thanks so much.